Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric with the Lorebrarians YouTube channel and welcome to part 2 of the Plane of Ixalan Explained. Today's video will cover the history of the plane as well as the character arc and story events that transpire on it. If you haven't already, be sure to check out part 1 in which I discuss the setting of Ixalan as well as the major races that populate its continents. I'll provide the video link in the description below. Alright, let's dive in. Much of Ixalan's early history is incomplete or unimpressive, due in large part to the plane's remote location in the multiverse paired with a rather slow progression towards civilization among its inhabitants. Still, there's information to be gleaned from ancient texts and inferences to be made on the state of the plane. The merfolk of the River Heralds were the dominant species on the continent of Ixalan and lived in perfect harmony with nature for centuries before the humans of the ancient Sun Empire ever arrived. At this time, across the vast storm-wrecked sea, the eastern continent was likely sparsely populated with small human tribes and temporary settlements where people made their existence by living off the land. For centuries, the two continents lived in exclusion while their civilizations developed. Eventually, to the shock of the River Heralds, humans began populating Ixalan and erecting small settlements. If we are to believe the teachings of the Sun Empire priests, it was Kinjali, the Awakening Sun, and wide-aligned aspect of the threefold sun that shaped humans from clay and baked them in the warm embrace of the sun to grant them life. Alternatively, daring and adventurous humans from the east, or perhaps those forcefully driven from their homes, made their way across the sea and found landfall along the fertile coastline of Ixalan's eastern shore. Regardless of their origins, the humans of Ixalan quickly expanded along the eastern side of the continent and built large cities, but remained rather tribal in nature, often fighting each other for land and resources. During this time, they developed a religion in which they worshipped the sun in three aspects. This threefold sun gave humans life, fostered their growth, and filled them with creativity and passion. It granted them the privileged position at the top of the natural hierarchy and enabled them to control or speak to the massive dinosaurs that populated the continent. Dinosaurs would quickly become integral to the identity of the budding Sun Empire. The humans of Ixalan left the River Heralds of the interior alone for the most part, and vice versa. Neither had reason to do otherwise. Across the sea, small city-states and kingdoms developed. One rose to prominence and would later play a significant role in the shaping of the continent. This nation was called Torrezon. One event changed the course of Ixalan's history far more than any other, and that was the arrival of the mysterious Immortal Sun. The Sphinx Planeswalker and Hieromancer Azor conspired with Ugin the Spirit Dragon to cleanse the multiverse of the threat of Nicol Bolas, Ugin's twin. Azor crafted the Immortal Sun for this purpose, an artifact of immense power that prevented Planeswalkers from using their spark to planeswalk. With the device prepared, Azor needed a suitable prison and settled on the backwater plane of Ixalan. He long dreamed of bringing order to the plane, which he could accomplish while he waited Ugin's message. The final act needed to power the sun was for Azor to sacrifice his own planeswalker spark. For years he stood vigil, but word never came from the spirit dragon, and so Azor became trapped within his own prison. Needing time to ponder his future, he entrusted the protection of the Immortal Sun to a monastery in the mountainous region of Torrezon on the eastern continent before disappearing. The monks of the monastery believed the Sphinx to be a god and worshipped him as well as the Immortal Sun. Their stewardship over the artifact granted them significant longevity. For many years it remained, but word of the Immortal Sun and its reported power spread across the eastern continent, whose warlords were in constant conflict. One such warlord, known as Padron the Wicked, sought to use the Immortal Sun for conquest and sacked the monastery, leaving only one monk alive, Alenda of Garano. She stumbled out of the burning building with egregious wounds, just in time to see her winged god fly down from the heavens. It wrested the Immortal Sun from Padron and disappeared to the west beyond the sea. Alenda, who dedicated her life to the sun's protection, had no choice but to chase after it. Azor came to the land of Ixalan with the Immortal Sun. There, the humans had progressed to building powerful city-states and commanding mighty dinosaurs. One city, Orazca, was the most prominent and was slowly adding smaller villages to its dominion. It's to this city and its formidable leader, Chikanto Intli, that Azor bestowed the Immortal Sun. Appearing to her as a vision of the threefold sun, Azor told Chikanto to keep the artifact safe and warned her from using its power to destructive ends before vanishing beyond the horizon. Chikanto Intli utilized the Immortal Sun to unite the fractured city-states of Ixalan, forming what would soon be called the Sun Empire. Orazca became the capital of this budding nation, and the Immortal Sun brought prosperity to the empire. At this time, the humans worked in tandem with the River Heralds, going so far as combining their magic to create the fabled Forest of Itlimoc. For generations, the Sun Empire flourished and Orazca's opulence grew, becoming a legendary symbol of the Empire's strength. But then a young emperor by the name of Apatzakintli sought to add the entire continent of Ixalan under the Sun Empire's rule, and wielded the Immortal Sun for sinister personal gains. He led the humans in brutal conquest against the River Heralds and other small tribes. In their darkest hour, the merfolk leader was visited by Azor, who offered aid in defeating Apatzakintli's forces. With the help of his magic, the River Heralds pushed back the Sun Empire and conquered their capital city of Orazca, where the Immortal Sun was held. With the loss of both their capital and their artifact, the Sun Empire was broken and dissolved into a few coastal cities, while the River Heralds became the new stewards of the Immortal Sun. With the pain of the artifact's power fresh in their minds, the merfolk wanted nothing to do with it and knew they would be tempted to use the sun as it had been used against them. Their leaders implored Azor to hide the Immortal Sun and the golden city of Orazca so that none could call on its power ever again, even their own kind. The Sphinx agreed to cloak the city so long as the merfolk would continue to patrol the surrounding lands and deter any who would seek the Immortal Sun. During this time, the eastern continent also saw its share of violence and bloodshed. The mountain nation of Torrezon became embattled in civil war after the death of its monarch. 3 siblings each claimed their right to the throne and sought to stake their claim by force. The eldest daughter was the most powerful and allied herself with the Church of Torrezon that had evolved from the faith and worship of the Immortal Sun. The younger sons, known as the Apostacene Princes, banded together to oppose their sister, thus sparking the Apostacene War, a 30-year-long struggle that racked the entire nation. Towards the end of the war, the Apostacene forces were gaining much ground and sought out one last battle to finally destroy their sister and the church. With camps on opposite ends of a plain and armies taking to the field, the Apostacene forces began their assault, but before blows could be struck, a shadowy figure surged across the horizon from the west. It blew through the front lines with ease, killing all in its way to the Apostacene camp. The shadow summarily executed all leaders and generals on the prince's side, ending the decades-long struggle in mere minutes. The shadow revealed itself to be a returned Elenda of Gurano. Elenda was unsuccessful in her search for the Immortal Sun on Ixalan and feared her life would end before it could be reclaimed. She resorted to dark magic and completed a ritual that transformed her into the first vampire. She had returned to Torrezon to recruit more individuals to help her in her search. The nobility and the church both saw the sheer power vampirism offered after witnessing Elenda's massacre and implored her to share her magic. She agreed, and many partook in this religious transformation to vampirism, which would be called the Rite of Redemption. Initially meant as a holy sacrifice to search for and return the Immortal Sun to Torrezon, the nobility and clergy quickly utilized vampirism as a means of conquest, and the era of Torrezon's expansion began. A period of 300 years of war with intermittent and tenuous peace overtook the eastern continent, as the vampires of Torrezon used their power to gain more territory. They conquered and pillaged many cities, forcing many to retreat to the southwest, to the remaining free cities of the coast. For a few decades, the free cities experienced a cultural and technological golden age as they opened up trade routes and crafted superior naval vessels. They quickly charted the seas and lands beyond, as well as developed new technologies, but the shadow of Torrezon and the Church of Dusk was ever looming. In short order, the vampires marched on the free cities and took them by force. Never ones to capitulate and wanting to retain their independence, the humans of the free cities took to the waves and sailed for realms uncharted. Initially making landfall on the Sun Coast, they were unwelcomed by a wounded but slowly recovering Sun Empire and were forced once again to return to the sea. To eke out an existence, they resorted to plundering and became the first pirates of Ixalan. And it is now that we've reached the modern era of Ixalan. The eastern continent has been completely conquered by vampires and renamed as Torrezon, and vampire conquistadors have set up forts along Queen's Bay on Ixalan. The Sun Empire has long since licked old wounds and has experienced a renaissance in culture and militaristic expansion. The pirates of the Brazen Coalition have increased their raids on vampire fleets and Sun Empire coastlines, and the River Heralds continue to keep vigil over the Great River and the jungle interior. And at the center of it all are tales and myths of the fabled lost city of Orazca and the Immortal Sun, nearly forgotten to time. The Sun Empire and Legion of Dusk wish to reclaim the sun due to its historical significance to their identity. The pirates due to the untold riches to be had in Orazca, and the River Heralds wish to keep all three from ever reaching the city. Jace Beleren finds himself caught in the search for Orazca after having been stranded on Ixalan. The Gatewatch failed to stop Nicol Bolas on the plane of Amonkhet, and as Jace's mind was crushed by the Elder Dragon, he instinctively planeswalked to Ixalan. Bound to Ixalan due to the power of the Immortal Sun, and without memory of himself or his past, Jace is rescued by the Gorgon Vraska and her pirate crew. Despite their previous run-ins, Jace has no recollection of Vraska, and so she uses him to help her in her search for the lost city. Unbeknownst to Jace, Vraska is working for Nicol Bolas and was gifted a thaumatic compass to direct her towards Orazca. Huatli, a warrior and dinosaur rider from the Sun Empire, has risen to prominence after fighting bravely against vampire incursions and pirate attacks along the Sun Coast settlements. Her skill and prowess in battle have made her the youngest candidate for the title of Warrior Poet, the highest honor among Sun Empire soldiers. During one defense, she met the Minotaur pirate Angrath, a planeswalker that has been trapped on Ixalan for 14 years, and in their ensuing battle her own spark ignited. She couldn't planeswalk away due to the Immortal Sun, which pushed her back like a golden gale, seen in the flavor text of Kinjali's Sunwing. Angrath defeated Huatli, but instead of killing her, he realized her potential as a planeswalker and offered to help her planeswalk if she would assist him in finding the Immortal Sun. She refused and fled back to her emperor, who believed her planeswalking vision to have shown her the location of the Immortal Sun. He granted her the title of Warrior Poet and sent her as his champion to find the city and reclaim the artifact for the Empire. To the south, the boots of Vona, Butcher of Magan, and Mavrin Fane have landed on the shores of Ixalan. They are to lead the Dusk Legion vampires in the search for Orazca and the Immortal Sun. A centuries-old vampire with a taste for war, blood, and brutality, Vona seeks glory and conquest, while the pious Fane searches to uncover the holiest relic for the Church. Their knightly orders of the Bloodstained and Sanctum Seekers are on the move, marching further north into Sun Empire and River Herald territory. The Heralds, meanwhile, are attempting to deter all advances on the Golden City in an effort to keep it hidden, but there's a voice of dissent among their numbers. Kumena, a shaper and old apprentice of Tishana, urges the River Heralds that the only chance they have to protect their way of life is to seek out the Immortal Sun and use its power for themselves. This talk is heretical to their purpose and teachings, but the world is changing, and Kumena argues that the River Heralds will cease to exist unless they take action. He and his band set out to find the lost city of Orazca. With all factions sending their champions, the race for Orazca begins. Huatli of the Sun Empire forms a loose alliance with Shaper Tishana as they both attempt to deny the invaders from the east. Vona and Mavrin march north with an army behind them. The pirate captain Brandis Thorn and his Dire fleet journey up the Great River, as do Captain Vraska, Jace, and her crew, following the thematic compass. They are attacked by a band of River Heralds, and their ship is heavily damaged, illustrated in the card River's Rebuke. The pair of planeswalkers continue upstream on foot. Meanwhile, Huatli and Tishana are tentatively joined by Angrath, and they discover the Tomb of the Duskrose, where Saint Elenda has been in stasis for years. At the same time, Shaper Kumena and his band have finally found the Golden City of Orazca, and Kumena proceeds to awaken the ancient city. The canopy and the ground itself crumble and sink away as the magnificent city rises from its slumber. Jace and Vraska witness the unveiling of Orazca, but the sinking of the earth pulls Jace down the river and over a waterfall. As he plummets, his memories flood back to him, and he realizes the gravity of the situation. Now, all factions have descended upon the city, but as the flavor text of Ravenous Chupacabra hints, opening Orazca awakened more than just the Immortal Sun. A bevy of nightmares, beasts, and dinosaurs native to the Golden City fall on the parties, and most awesome of all are the Elder Dinosaurs of Orazca, each a primal embodiment of one color of mana, and Zakama, the manifestation of the threefold sun. In the chaos and destruction that ensues, our champions struggle to reach the Sanctum of the Sun, where Vona and Mavrin Fane usurp Kumena's position and expel him from Orazca. The rest of the parties enter the Sanctum, and Tishana, Huatli, Vona, and Angrath all grab hold of the Immortal Sun. Their shared triumph is short-lived, as the Artificer Tezzeret, with the power of the Planar Bridge and in tune to Vraska's mission, opens a portal to Ixalan, where he swiftly snatches the artifact before disappearing to deliver it to his master, Nicol Bolas. In the wake of the discovery and subsequent loss of the Immortal Sun, much changes for the plane and people of Ixalan. Huatli, Angrath, and Jace are now free to planeswalk away. The River Heralds, with their purpose lost, retreat to the interior where they must contemplate their next course of action. The Legion of Dusk have lost their holy artifact, but have rediscovered their ancient progenitor. Elena is appalled by what has become of vampirism and demands to be taken to the Queen of Torrezon so that she may question her. The proud Sun Empire have lost their treasured symbol but have retaken their ancient capital, and the Emperor sees this as the beginning of a glorious golden age. He prepares his army for war, setting his sights on the continent of Torrezon. And Azor, the Sphinx who meddled with the histories of all the people of Ixalan, is banished to the useless island by Jace, where he is to remain in exile for the rest of his days. So ends the tumultuous history of the breathtaking plane of Ixalan. Thanks for watching part 2 of the Plane of Ixalan Explained. Leave a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe for weekly lore content. And now I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think the future holds for Ixalan and its people. And if you liked the series, leave a comment on planes you want to see explained in future videos. I had a blast making these videos and would love to continue. Links for the references used can be found in the description below. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.